I've heard fidget spinners are overdone, but I wanted to prototype one for craft fairs. I started out with a 7/8" copper pipe for a mold for the weights. I used a pipe cutter to get a couple inches of pipe. I bored a 7/8" hole into a short piece of scrap to hold the mold when I do the pour. Maybe not every good project needs fire, but it really can't hurt. I melted this lead bar in a little monkey bowl with the map gas torch. It helped to apply the heat directly to the lead to start the melt, then I could just hold the bowl over the torch until it was all melted. After that, I just poured the contents into the mold and set it aside to cool until the next day. This figured cherry left over from my daughter's bed will make a pretty spinner body. I cut it into a 3.5" square. Now I need center, layout lines at 120-degree increments, and weight center points marked at about 1 7/8". Over at the drill press, I bore the 7/8 holes for the weights. Then I follow up with a center hole for a screw, which will make sense in just a second. That center hole will allow me to affix the spinner body to the waste block on the lathe. The first step is just to round the body. Once that is done, I add a pleasant, gentle curve on one side. I do a quick high grit sanding just to remove any tool marks. Next, I bore a hole into the waste block for the nib that was left behind where the screw held in the body, and mount the body so I can work on the opposite side. Now I just need to add the same gentle curve I had on the opposite side and follow up with a quick sanding. While the body is still held in place with the screw, I tape the body to the waste block as tightly as possible. With the body held in place with the tape and the screw removed, I bore out the center for the bearing. Now I have a funny flying saucer-shaped spinner body. Now I get back to the weights. I use a reciprocating saw to cut off a few weights, trying to keep them all the same size. Then I use a file and some sandpaper to remove the copper burrs. And a test fit shows they'll work out perfectly. The next step is to remove the excess wood at the scroll saw. This part may have been made a little easier without the gentle curve on the faces of the body. I followed up the scroll saw with the smallest spindle to clean up the cuts on the scroll saw and do some fine shaping. In preparation to epoxying in the bearings and weights, I blue taped over the bearing mechanism. Then I used nickels as spacers to make sure the bearings and weights were centered within the body. Finally, it was just rolling the weights in epoxy and setting them. I did a final sanding on the body to remove the excess epoxy and create a smooth finish. With that waste block from earlier, I made a dowel just large enough for the bearing and weight covers. I did a quick hollow for the finger holes over the bearing. Then I cut a shoulder behind it and a center shaft for inside the bearing. With a pair of those, I had finger holds for the spinner. Next was the weight covers. These are just convex with a 7/8 inch shoulder with the parting tool and cut off with a handsaw. For each of the covers, I sanded the shoulders so it would sit flush. Then I marred the lead for better adhesion with the glue, and glued the finger holds and the weight covers onto the fidget spinner. A couple test spins were done to make sure that I still have a giddy childlike nature and that the superglue had not seized up the bearings. Finally, I rubbed on some mineral oil beeswax finish for a smooth, pleasant feel, and we'll test out that spinning again. In the end, things turned out okay. I did find out afterward about degreasing the bearing so it'll spin more freely, and I would probably use smaller weights in the future if I decide to make this for sale. You can check out our website shop to see if I am selling them or specifically request one. Thanks for watching. Leave comments below if you have thoughts or ideas, and God bless.